Hey there folks, my name is Emptyberry, and welcome to today's episode of Lore to Go, the series where we talk about the story behind games in 5 minutes or less. This episode will be about the King's Fall raid, specifically the backstory behind it and who the enemies we fight are. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel in order to see more videos about characters and events in the Destiny universe. With all that said, let's jump into it. The King's Fall raid takes place immediately after the conclusion of the Taken War, which occurred during the Taken King expansion of Destiny 1. Oryx, one of the 3 hive gods and the current Taken King, had come to the Sol system after hearing that Guardians had killed his son Crota. Oryx was also likely hunting down the Traveler, as he had done for millennia, killing off countless civilizations in his path. As a member of the Hive, who worshipped the darkness and the sword logic, he hated the Traveler and all who followed it, so the fact that Guardians had killed his son was salt in the wound. Towards the end of the Taken War, the Guardian boards the Dreadnought and faces off against Oryx himself. They are able to overpower the Hive God, but in his last moments, he kills himself with the taken energy from his sword to allow him to flee into his throne world. As a Hive God, he cannot be truly killed unless it is done inside of his throne world, so this victory was a hollow one. It does set up the King's Fall raid though, in which a fire team of Guardians enter Oryx's throne world to slay the Taken King once and for all. If you're familiar with Oryx and his powers, you might be wondering how a group of Guardians had any hope of killing him. As a quick summary, Oryx is insanely powerful, having killed one of the Worm Gods, defeated countless civilizations blessed by the Traveler, and having the ability to take, in which he can make enemies into his undying slaves. However, the very thing that gives him these incredible powers, the sword logic, is also his greatest weakness. The Hive have to constantly feed their worms through acts of violence, and the Hive gods created a tithing system to manage this constant hunger. Lesser Hive offer some of their energy to their superiors, who do the same to their superiors, all the way up to Oryx. If this tithing system can be disrupted by killing off those beneath Oryx to stem the flow of energy going to his worm, it would significantly weaken him to the point that he could be defeated. This method is exactly what the Guardians were doing during the King's Fall raid, taking out Oryx's strongest underlings one by one. The first of these was the War Priest. The War Priest is one of the most powerful champions in Oryx's court, having conquered over 500 worlds in service of the Taken King. He is completely devoted to the sword logic, and that by killing and gaining victory over others, he is proving his existence has meaning. At some point, he decided to follow Oryx, offering tribute to him in hopes that Oryx would escape from needing to kill to feed his worm. He instead wanted Oryx to focus on leading the Hive to be the final shape. Among his abilities, he learned to create an Oversoul from Crota, which helps to grant him a resilience beyond mere immortality. However, the Guardians are able to avoid his Oversoul and defeat him, which causes Oryx to weaken as a large amount of tribute is cut off. The second encounter of the raid is with Golgoroth, a Hive ogre strengthened with power from the worm gods Xol and Aiur. Xol originally created Golgoroth with the purpose of devouring Oryx and his family, but Aiur intervened and instead gave him to Oryx's court as one of their champions. Later on, after Oryx carved the Tablets of Ruin out of the dead worm god Akka, one of the tablets was placed inside of Golgoroth, causing him to gain even more power. When facing off against the Guardians, if enough of them die or if pools of light go unused, the tablet will charge and gain power, eventually filling up and killing everyone by draining them all of light. The Guardians managed to also defeat this threat, further disrupting the tribute being sent to Oryx. The final encounter before Oryx is his daughters, Ir Halak and Ir Anuk, the Death Singers. The daughters were brilliant, having created and perfected some of the Hive's most powerful weapons, such as the Death Song, the Oversoul, and the Annihilator totems. While not physically powerful, they had the ability to use Hive magic to remove their enemies from the fabric of existence. They were the last line of defense before Oryx, but the Guardians cut them down by stealing their protections from them to avoid the deadly powers of the Death Song. Alone and weakened, the Guardians faced off against their true foe, Oryx, the Taken King. Oryx at this point was greatly weakened, but still incredibly powerful and unable to be harmed by traditional means. However, his own powers and abilities would become his downfall. He attempted to pull the Guardians into the darkness and take them, but they were able to use Oryx's own captured light against him. By slaying his Light Eater ogres and then detonating the light they left behind, the blight in Oryx's chest erupted in a violent burst that brought about the king's permanent defeat. As his lifeless body floated away from the Dreadnought to orbit Saturn, the Guardians claimed their victory and defeated one of the Hive gods. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Lore to Go. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on any future content. That's all for today though. Thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you next time.